Hi, everyone. I wanted to take the opportunity to go over with you strategies for selling your home in today's market. And this is a comprehensive guide for those who are thinking about selling in the near future. And I want to tackle some questions that people may have or questions that a lot of sellers are not asking. The whole purpose of today's seminar is to talk more about what's most important. That is money. Aside from, we could have conversations on strategies to get your home ready for saleability in today's market. I want to discuss with you the financial background and aspect of when you are selling your home. These questions have come up commonly in our Q4 annual financial review that I have every year with a lot of clients and people in our community. And I thought, why not share this content out with more people? So stay tuned with me. We have a quick overview today. It's going to be about 10 slides. One thing I want to go over with you is that your situation for your financials are going to be different than anyone else. If you have particular questions, we're going to hold them for the end, but I encourage you to please reach out to me and we can set up a phone, Zoom call, or an in-person meeting so I can dive into the numbers with you. In terms of disclaimer, please be advised that I am not an attorney. I cannot provide you any legal advice, nor am I an accountant, and I cannot provide you any financial advice. This information that I'm providing with you is a general overview. And if you have any particular questions with respect to legal or financial, please refer to your accountant. Okay, so let's dive in quickly. I value everyone's time. So what are we going to go over today? We're going to talk about what is home equity, understanding your mortgage payoff, tax implications of selling, what do seller closing costs look like. We'll dive into understanding home modifications to boost value. That's important because guess what? It costs you money. What inspections look like because inspections also cost you money. There is also strategy for bridge loans because let's face it, a lot of people need to sell their current home in order to afford that next move. And then always a big thing, what is 1031 exchange and what is managing capital gains? So we will dive into that. Okay, very, very simple home equity. Let's dive into this a little bit. An example, if your home is worth 400,000 and your mortgage balance is 250, your estimated home equity is 150. Very simple math. However, let's talk about home equity. So there are a lot of people that focus on home equity for three different reasons. One, the home equity to utilize in your next purchase. Two, a home equity to obtain a line of credit. And three, a cash out refinance. So what I don't have here on the slides, and if you can listen a little bit and take some notes because this is going to be important information as we discuss home equity. Let's dive into the HELOC, the home equity line of credit. You might hear the acronym HELOC, home equity line of credit. People utilize this to pull out money from their home, maybe pay down some debt, maybe pull out a home equity line of credit to help fund that next purchase or to purchase an investment property. Even if you are someone who is not thinking of selling right now, let's still have conversations if you are thinking about either A, paying off debt, B, looking to purchase an investment property, or C, looking to perform renovations for your home, because these are important factors with respect to the HELOC. Okay, disclaimer, do not go on the internet and see your Instagram or Facebook ads and see all these things about wonderful, free, amazing home equity lines of credit. They are scams. So I just want to get that off the cusp for you guys so you can understand that a lot of the stuff that you find online is not always true. With a home equity line of credit, let's assume that your home equity is we'll go off of the $150,000 number here. Okay, this is you. Your home is worth 400, you have a mortgage of 250, and your home equity is about 150. Now, if you can pull out a calculator, let's do 150, okay, times 80%. So based upon your home equity in this scenario, a lender will allow for you under a HELOC to obtain $120,000 of your home equity. That's the cleanest case. Let's start focusing on a couple other nuances that people do not discuss. When you're getting a HELOC, you have closing costs. So a lot of people also finance their closing costs for their home equity line of credit. Now, with that said, every home equity line of credit and each lender is going to have different costs, but let's assume that the cost is $6,000. Okay. So then your walk away is $114,000. Right, so that's how we calculate based upon a HELOC. Now, let's go into talking about when you are selling your home. Do you walk away with 150? Not necessarily, because you also have closing costs. We will dive into this seminar a little bit more, discussing what fees a seller pays at closing. Now, when you sell a home, the money from this equity, right? So if you're getting a HELOC, you're getting this money from the bank. Okay. Now, when you're selling your home, you're getting that money from a buyer. Okay. So let's assume that your closing cost, we'll just run a interesting number. Let's assume that it's total going to be 6%. We'll dive into more, so don't quote me on the 6%, but I want to go over a key example with you here. So selling a home that's $400,000, let's assume that your closing costs, all rounded up, is around $25,000. So let's take the 150, if you have your calculator, minus 24,000. Your walk away is around $126,000. Okay, so our example number one, for the home equity line of credit, your walk away is 114. When you're selling your property, your walk away is around 126. Now, if we're going in a cash out refinance, you could assume that it's going to be close to that 114. However, you are refinancing this whole mortgage. So you have to consider the cost for what your monthly payment will be based upon your total. Okay. So the cash out refinance, you could expect similar results to that of a HELOC. However, you will have changes in your differences in your monthly payment between your HELOC and your cash out refi. Now, those two scenarios, best bet is definitely talking to a lender. Now, a lot of people are afraid to talk to a lender. And a lot of people are afraid, what is the right lender, or who is the right lender to talk to? Here's the tip that I give most home buyers is when you are shopping for any mortgage, the credit bureaus know you're shopping around. So long as you're shopping within that 30-day window, you can talk to a multitude of lenders and it'll come in as one hard check. Of course, as you're going through the mortgage process, talk to the lender and confirm any changes to your credit score, because majority of them may either be doing a soft check or a hard check. So first question, ask any lender, will you be doing a hard check or a soft check? Okay. So this is interesting. So let's going off the notion of saying you're selling your home, you have a mortgage to pay off. The reason why I'm putting this here is I want to talk to you about a case study for a house that I had sold. I'll never forget this one. Okay. Anytime if you may have met with me and we've done a financial review on your house, or we have spoken about you're selling your home in the next 6 months to a year, maybe even sooner, the one document that I request for you is I say, when you have time, I need you to call your lender who you have your current mortgage with and obtain a payoff. When you get this payoff for your mortgage, it might be between 1 to 3 pages. Okay, so you get this payoff and you see the numbers, and people just focus on the numbers. They don't focus on the disclosures on the next couple pages or on the bottom of the first page. And one disclosure that has come to light is this. Bottom of the payoff will say, for additional payoffs, please call and I'll give you a 1-800 number. If you are someone who has done at any point in time a loan modification, this applies to you. What did we just have? I know it's now been 5 years, but we had COVID. And what was the amazing thing that they promised in COVID? Well, you can call your bank. We'll defer your payments for 3 months or whatever you had negotiated with your lender at that time, depending on your situation, because we all know that that was such a challenging time during COVID. Well, hear this out. I had a client. We ordered the payoff. At our meeting, I said, we're tight on numbers. You're relocating out of state. You're buying this new construction project. We're tight. I need you to get your mortgage payoff. Get the mortgage payoff. Okay. I went through this with a fine-tooth comb, and what's interesting? There was never a disclosure about an additional payoff. I looked for it because I know. Well, the buyer's title I'm sorry, the seller's attorney ordered a payoff when we're getting closer, about, 2 weeks before closing. And the buyer's title company reviewed this payoff. And it was so interesting because I just told you we already ordered a payoff before we listed the house, so we knew our numbers. Well, when this new payoff was ordered, the title company caught it. They had an additional page that was provided and said this: for additional payoffs, please call this 1-800 number. Guess what? Title company called that 1-800 number, called my seller's attorney and said, hey, did you know that you have an additional $43,000 loan with us through a modification that you need to pay off? Shocking. How would you feel if someone told you a week to 2 weeks before closing and you're planning your next move, hey, there's an additional $43,000 that you're responsible to pay to your lender? Seller's like, well, what the heck is this? I had no idea. Well, come to find out, you did that loan modification during COVID, right? Yeah. And let me tell you, ever since then, and I asked someone, I say, did you ever do a loan modification, especially during COVID? Some people forget. And then they're like, yes, I did. I said, well, you need to make sure that you're not ordering that payoff from just your app on your phone or your online banking. You need to call the 1-800 number and you need to ask them, can you confirm any additional payoffs for my loan modification? Because that is a huge thing. Now, here's the other component. Some people who, let's say you had an investment loan or hard money or some type of unique financing, or you used a first-time home buyer grant, you may have a prepayment penalty. Okay? So my next big ask when you're getting your mortgage payoff, right? And before we talk any numbers or you're figuring out your plan, your real estate related plans, this is key. If you have a mortgage on your property, this is key. So not only if you have a loan modification or you might forget, ask, and then also ask for any prepayment penalty. And this applies anyone with unique financing and anyone who has done a grant that is selling before their time frame. For instance, a Save New Jersey grant gives a $15,000 grant. You cannot refinance within a 5-year period, and you also have a prepayment penalty as well, that's applied to repaying the grant back. I'll tell you these situations personally. I recall my sister years ago got that first time homebuyers grant, and it was like $5,000 at the time. And she had sold her house in Hamilton before that 5 years. We had to pay it back. And I had found so many different people that I have met with, different sellers, that they weren't aware of this. And they found out like right before closing that there was this money they had to pay back that they didn't plan for. Now, that is some stress. That is some stress. So I'm bringing this to your attention because people are not going over this with their clients, not making them aware. And what happens is you run the risk of having a shocking surprise at closing. Okay, let's move on a little bit about tax implications of selling. Okay, I had a client who unfortunately had lost her husband in July. It will be about 2 years. So I want to talk to you about her scenario so you can understand where this applies. Okay. Client, July, husband had passed away 2 years. Okay. Now they have this house. There's no mortgage on it. Equity is above this $500,000 threshold. Okay. If she sells her home within that 2-year period of her husband's passing, she would still hold that $500,000 exemption. If she would to sell after the 2-year, it then is reduced under a single filer for $250. Now, with the capital gains, I did not put the calculations on here, and I'm going to tell you why. I have sat down and I've done calculations of capital gains, and I'll say, okay, we talk about federal, we talk about state. Overall, we're looking about 15% or 10% or whatever the percentage that would apply to them, because these implications do vary. If you are concerned with capital gains and you know that your equity, your walkaway exceeds these numbers or don't conform with these exemptions, make a note, send me a text if you can, put a message here. Let's talk and run into the numbers so I can give you a little bit more background. And I'm going to refer you to your accountant or an accountant or a few that I can provide to you as a recommendation that they are experts with capital gains. So now, who else should be concerned? Investors. We will be going over briefly about a 1031 exchange option. Now, with 1031 exchanges, we do hire a 1031 exchange company. We'll talk about that. I hear this question a lot, and people say, if I fall into owning my home as a primary residence and within this threshold, can I do a 1031 exchange? I got that question a couple times. And if you're thinking of that, I'm going to refer you to, as we get into 1031 exchange, a 1031 exchange expert to help you. Okay. What is most important? People want to know, like, what's the cost of selling, right? And everyone just thinks that it's realtor commissions. And my disclaimer that I legally have to say is all commission is negotiable. Now, I understand that many of you might be thinking, well, sellers don't have to pay commission anymore. There's this whole lawsuit, all this other hoopla going on in the world. Not necessarily the case. Legally, I have to disclose that commission is negotiable. Of course, this is a one-on-one conversation. So let's just say, just want to give higher numbers, and let's say that agents' commissions are between 5 to 6% of the sales price. Here is a catch-22. So I get this question a lot and I negotiate it. Okay, let's say, because I want to come into commissions. I remember I told you that it's negotiable. Okay, so let's say you're selling your house for $500,000. And let's say that you're one of these people in Hopewell Township that need to negotiate a septic credit or whatever the case may be. Now, with credits and, things like that, it's a little bit hairy. I'll dive into that briefly a little bit, but I want to go over this example. So you're selling your house for 500,000 and you're giving a credit of $50,000. So there's always this nuance. Is it off of the sales price or is it off of base price? Would the commission be off of 500 or 450? So, good question to ask as you are starting to think about your sales if you are thinking of selling. Okay, what do you pay in closing cost? It's not just the realtor's commission, I can assure you that. Alrighty, so you have your, potentials for title insurance. So contract of sale. I love this. I love when people tell me I do not need an attorney when selling my home. I can protect myself. I love this. Here is a tip. In the contract of sale, New Jersey contract of sale, it specifies, things on page 10 or 11, just going off my memory, but it specifies this that the seller will pay 1/2 of buyer's title insurance. Okay. In a standard attorney review process, the attorneys X that out and say, nope, 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 buyers to pay the full title insurance. Okay. So, as a tip, when you're thinking about not using an attorney, attorneys can negotiate other fees in the contract. A realtor cannot negotiate that for you. When you have a contract, there's a notice on the first page of the contract, and it says very clearly that basically we as realtors, unfortunately, we're given this power to be able to fill out this contract form, but we can only fill out the text boxes. We cannot touch anything in the black bold language. We can't touch any of it. If we can't put in the information, we can't touch it. Only an attorney can. So, title fees, escrows, transfer tax, attorney fees, township inspection fees, transfer taxes, prorated taxes and HOA fees, well, septic, and chimney certifications, staging, and then moving costs. You know what I find so interesting is we'll meet and we'll go over what your walkaway costs are, and that's great. And, so you can then budget plan. And I do not understand why you interview your realtors, but you're not interviewing your moving companies. They cost a lot of money. And I had this experience years ago, and I was selling this house in Hopewell. And to my other clients, I love everyone, but these people are my ultimate favorite. And I say this because when I went to California, they spent some time with me. So we're doing the final walkthrough with my clients, and their movers are moving. And I met their movers and I said, wow, guys, I am so impressed. They were wrapping everything beautifully. They were cleaning as they were going. Everything in that truck was neatly organized. They were, taking and moving everything with care. I was shockingly impressed by this moving company. So, nicest guys you'll ever meet. Okay. They get everything, now they're taking it from Hopewell and they're going all the way to California. Okay. So my clients, wow, you got yourselves a really good, reputable, moving company. They're like, oh, the price is great. They were phenomenal. Great experience. About a couple days later, I get a call from the client. They say, do you want to know what happened with our moving truck? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they got into an accident. They said, no, they were late delivering our items and they called for ransom. these guys that were like, I love them. I was impressed. They were, so nice, genuine people. And then they call for ransom. And it was like, I don't remember the exact fees, but it was a drastic amount. It's like, we'll give you your stuff, but you have to give us 10 grand. If you don't, we're dumping it somewhere. Can you believe that? And I say this story quite often to people who are especially doing, out of state moves, even overseas moves. And this story that I tell, that I'm telling you now, I've told so many other clients. And would you believe that this story, this same story, has happened to multiple other people? People who I represented, clients of my realtor friends, this happens. So the question is, well, why does this happen? I know sometimes people have their own people, they want to do their own research, they're not comfortable taking referrals. I understand that. And if that's you and you want to vet your own people, great. But if you're thinking of selling and you're focusing on the costs and what to expect when selling, and you're interviewing realtors, you're interviewing attorneys, you have to interview movers as quickly as possible. This is going to be really important. It doesn't cost you anything to get quotes. It doesn't. Now, if you are taking a look at these costs, maybe you screenshot it. I mean, of course, all these costs are definitely going to vary. The nets are going to be different between each person. So, my automated market reports, while I will be candid with you, I do not love them. I do not love anything automated. As someone who has a background in real estate appraising, I have my opinions. But if you use our automated market report, I do have a built-in equity calculator there. My calculator will go over with you what your walkaway is. It will also give you what you can get in a cash out refi, what you can get out in a HELOC, and what your home would look like if you decide to maybe rent it. And I know we're not talking about rentals right now. I will be talking in later seminars about a sale versus rent matrix, but our reports have that built in. So if you text HVN to 59559 and put in your address, you'll have access to this report and you'll have access to these calculators. Again, automated home valuations are not your true value. So if you want to know what the true value of your home is, you have to contact a realtor to do a walkthrough. Now, if you have a unique home, like a 10,000 square foot custom with a whole big pole barn situation, I will tell you very clearly, you need to call an appraiser. Also, I just got this the other day. Someone's looking at our reports and he had called me. He said, Stephanie, your number is so off. And I'm like, okay, let me do the numbers. And I said to him, like, okay, so my reports are saying about 1.2. Your value that I'm getting is around 1.5, 1.7-ish. Um, what's your number? He goes, 2 million. I said, okay. Where are you getting 2 million from? He had said to me, he goes, well, when I sell, I'm including my equipment. And I'm like, oh, you have a custom property or you're selling a business, any equipment has to be valued by a specific type of appraiser. Okay, so keeping that in mind. Okay, moving along. All right, cost, home modifications to boost value. I want to go into an example of why this is important, and I'm going to give you a smaller scale example. Okay, so I met this client. She had called me and she says, has a very small house in Hamilton, very small house. And I loved it because I also have two tiny homes that I own in Hamilton myself. So she says, but I'm not sure if I should maybe invest some money into it. I don't really have money to invest in the house. And I said, okay. I go, I can give you example scenarios and tips and tricks all day long, but I don't know what's going to work for you. So let me come by this afternoon. I went over to the house and I did the walkthrough, and I love the house because, as I told you, I love these little tiny homes. And I said, okay, well, let's work on what the value would be as it stands right now. And I'm going to put together, I'm writing down, I sat there and I wrote down a list of everything that a buyer would typically want to see. I wrote down everything about potential things like that will come up in a home inspection, what would come up in a CO. So I analyzed everything. There's three reasons why houses sell and don't sell. It's so simple. How well it is priced, marketed, and shown. Then let's focus on why transactions fall apart. Appraisals and mortgages and inspections. Inspections are the biggest deal killer. You can have any home and have a buyer come in and say, I'm going to give you 2 million cash. Great. That's phenomenal. There's all these contingencies that apply in a contract in New Jersey that they have their escape clauses. So let's dive into that. I wrote down my list for this client and going through everything. And I sat there and I said to her, I go, do you mind if I just make a quick call and I want to do a video tour with a contractor that I know? And you don't have to use him, but do you mind? I need to do some numbers here with you and let's just get this done together. So I call the contractor. He says, send me a picture of your list. Send the picture. We went on a call. I did the walkthrough. And he's like, you know what? He goes, I'm actually in Hamilton on a job right now. He goes, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He goes, I'm concerned about a couple things. Came over. He did his thing. And when he was done, he gave me the number of what it would cost based upon that list that I provided him. So I was like, okay, cool. So I sat down with the seller and I said, let's go over all these numbers. And based upon the comparables, I don't want to say comparables, but based upon the resales and the market value, as is condition was about 180. It was about 180. And I said, okay, so the contractor wants 4,000. Small house, so small price, but it was a lot of work. He wants 4,000. Now, this is what he'll do. He wants a deposit of 800. And then if you sell your home within the next 60 days, he will take that 4,000 at closing with no interest. Past 60 days, you have to do installments and interest. Is that something you'd be comfortable with? Okay, helped her with the budget of not having the money to do the modifications. And then I said, well, let's talk about if we did this and we followed this plan, let's talk about that number. And then that number that I had was around 230, 225, 230. Harder to tell because it was really such a small house. Technically, legally, it was a 2-bedroom, but it was really like a 1-bedroom. Okay. So take out your calculator for a minute. Okay, so let's just call it 190. So her house was worth 190 as is, no investment. And let's go with the lower number. We said 225. So 225 minus 190 is $35,000. And these repairs are only going to cost her 4,000. So I'm making her $31,000. You know how much stress you're under when you're going through this and you're like, all right, I'm going to make you the money. And listen, nothing's guaranteed at the end of the day until it's done and money's in the hand. Things can change. So I said, listen, there's always risk to everything. There's always risk to every investment. So, but I think $31,000 is too much to lose. Let's take the risk. So we did. Let me tell you the results. We ended up listing the house for 230 and we sold the house for 260. 260. Yeah. So Do that math. 260 minus 190. So $70,000. Well, minus the cost, she made $66,000 just off of a $4,000 investment. There are small things that you can do to help improve your home to boost its value. Now, a lot of people in this situation, they say to me, Stefanie, listen, I'm not ready to sell another 2, 3, maybe 5 years. I have kids in school. I'm not sure about my job, whatever the circumstance may be. And to those people who are looking to stay in their home longer periods, here is my tip for you. Your energy efficient upgrades are going to be most valuable. So, windows, proper attic insulation, checking for mold, updating your HVAC, do those weird electrical outlets, that's also something to think about. Um, like two prongs or outlets that are falling out of the wall. I see that quite often. Knob and tube wiring, the old frayed wiring, that's a fire hazard. Those types of major inspection items, start working on that as soon as possible. Now, they're going to be more cost-driven improvements, but they will help you in the end. But additionally, not so much in terms of also boosting your value, but it's going to help you with the inspection period. All right, so yeah, let's talk about inspections, preparing for buyer scrutiny. I love this. I love inspections. I'm going to tell you why, because it's so interesting how people perceive the inspection period. All right. Standard language that I hear all the time. I use this in my offers. Let me tell you what it is because I see it on our listings and I put it in as offers. So let me explain to you what the language is. Okay, buyers are no longer waiving inspections. They're not. It's just not happening. So they're having inspections. Let's deal with it. And everyone is having inspections. Cash buyers, investors. I'm seeing it across the board. Inspections are happening. How do we address it? So if I'm preparing an offer for a buyer, I'm going to do this. And again, depending on negotiations, but let's just talk about my standard language that I'll put in and I see commonly with other offers that are coming in on our listing. Okay. So it's this. Buyer to have a home inspection for informational purposes subject to systemic, environmental, structural safety. Okay. So the only thing that's not in there is cosmetic, which in the contract of sale, under the inspection contingency section, it does stipulate that cosmetic defects or end of life do not constitute repair or replacement in the inspection period. So that verbiage that, is nicely put in these offers, it's not even needed because the inspection clause stipulates the same thing. So we're just rewording it. So, but let me define this for you. All right, so let's go into safety. Safety is broken window locks, broken windows, not having caps on the electrical wires, not having cover plates on a junction box, having a tripping hazard on a step, having cracks in the masonry in a sidewalk or a driveway. It could also be safety in terms of like a fireplace, which could also go into structural. Non-GFCI outlets, reverse polarity, non-grounded electrical wires, non-carbon smoke detectors, a weird outlet in a light in a bathroom. I see that common in a lot of homes in Hamilton. That comes up. Let's go and dive into, so that's safety. Let's talk about systemic. Systemic is all of your operating systems and including plumbing. A leaking faucet, a faucet that has the reversing of the knobs. The cold faucet runs hot because it's switched. Not having a proper trap, a P versus S trap, having a broken diverter, having a clog in your tub or your sink, having a loose toilet, having a leaking toilet, right? Like the list can go on. When we're talking about systemic, it is the operating systems. If something is not operating, then it falls under systemic. So let's also talk about systemic too. Um, Code violations. So 15 years ago, you updated your bathroom and you had a window in your bathroom that you never changed. Well, it's this old window and it doesn't have that tempered glass. Buyer has a home inspector, and the home inspector says that window needs to be tempered glass. Hey, guess what? Under systemic, it needs to be tempered glass. Even though when you got your permit to reno your bathroom 15 years ago and it wasn't called for because that's not what code needed, hey, guess what? That also applies. Environmental, big one, mold. Every single buyer I'm working with, we are doing mold testing. We are doing sewer scans. We are doing well, also we're doing underground oil tank sweeps. Okay, environmental. Let's go into structural. Structural falls under your foundation. Bigger thing for older homes. If you have an older home and things are a little wonky, or you may have a cobblestone foundation, maybe talk to an engineer, structural engineer, to do an evaluation before you list. What also falls under structural? WDI, wood destroying insects. And guess what? The same applies for maybe a detached garage or shed. If your shed is within a certain amount of feet from the house, okay, and your shed has pests, same deal. Okay. Termites are so common in this area. Um, even mouse problems. So I hear this all the time, like I have a house that has mice, or rather, I should say a house that had mice. And I was like, all right, it's tenant occupied. I did everything. I made sure everything was closed off. We spray foamed everything, traps galore, bait galore. I dosed the house in peppermint oil like you wouldn't believe. Peppermint oil is amazing. If you have like roaches, bed bugs, mice, peppermint oil. So they're like, call me, we're still mice. I'm like, there's nothing more I can do with this mice because I have done everything. Like, I have someone there every couple weeks for these darn mice. Like, I don't know what's happening here. So, Keith, the guy I used for pests, he goes, it's the mice are in their stuff. So I'm like, well, now it's a your problem, not a me problem. But let me tell you, what these mice did. They were hungry. Do you know what they decided to eat? Electrical wire. Yeah. So a lot of people just, there's mice. I'll put a couple traps out. It's not serious. Oh, yeah. They're hungry. They're not just eating your fridge or eating your crumbs. They are eating other things. So if you know that you've mice or planning seasonally, treat for mice. Now, it's always, I recommend, and I would like you to make this investment if you're thinking about selling, is get this pre-listing inspection. A pre-listing home inspection can vary between $500 to $1,000 depending on your house and what inspections you want. Now, every house is different, so I might say let's do these different type of inspections, whether it be well, septic, sewer scan, wood destroying insect, radon. A lot of clients, if you work with me in the Hopewell Hunterdon area, I say we're testing for radon. I had a client last year refused to do any inspections. And I said, that's fine. It's your house. I'm not going to push it, but I'm advising this suggestion and this investment because it'll help you in the long run. All right, so let me give you this example. Didn't want to do it. Okay. And he says, I'll just offer the buyer credit. Oh, okay, no problem. And there were some things, but this is the one thing that really got me. So he's in Hopewell. What did he have? He had radon. Okay. So I call him and I said, hey, blah, blah, blah. I got the test for the radon. I had two companies price it out. Here are the prices for the radon. And I think what we can do is we can just do this right on because we have time to get it done, get the permit, get it closed out, and a retest for closing because we got 3 weeks. I think we're okay. Or if you don't want to deal with it, here's the estimate. We can pick the two of the lower, whatever, or we can give them the option to vet the company, make sure it's someone they want to use. So they're comfortable and we all are happy. Um, I just want authorization from you on how to proceed with this. And I think he was away or something, didn't get back to me until the next day. And text him was like 7 in the morning. I'm like, hey, as a reminder, if you have time today, we need to chat so I can figure out how to negotiate this rate on issue for you. So comes around 10 o'clock and the buyer's attorney emails everyone. And my client was actually copied on this email, which is not very common. Normally just the legal counsel. And the buyers requested a $5,000 credit for the radon. And I write back all angrily and I say, no, the seller is declining to give that credit. We have done our due diligence obtaining these estimates for the radon. And the client then writes back and says, I just don't want to deal with it. We'll give them the 5,000. I was like, okay, ultimately it's your decision. So, but the estimate I have for your radon was 1,800 bucks. So take out your calculator because I want to show you this loss. All right. So 5,000 minus 1,800, $3,200. Okay. In this example, client lost $3,200 on inspection negotiations. How could this have gone differently? I see this all the time. When you, as a seller, are leaving the inspections and the negotiations in the buyer's hands, guess what? It's going to benefit just the buyers. They're only going to benefit themselves. They're going to benefit you. So you can always come to a good meeting of the minds. What buyers, when we negotiate these credits, you know what we're paying, what we're on top of the cost, what we're asking for, is we're asking for, I call it a convenience fee. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Is that it's inconvenient for the buyer to have to go and hire someone to make this repair on your behalf. So we're going to ask for more money to do that. I would love someone to pay me extra money to get the estimates, right? Because we do this as part of our job. And it's so interesting to see the challenges that people face when it comes to this inspection period. So my advice to you is doing your due diligence up front. Making that investment in your inspections will help you a long way. Now, in another example, and depending on your situation, some of you might be thinking, like, I don't sell my house as is, I'm dealing with this drama. Okay, whatever. I mean, it's our job. We do all the conductions and the ordering and we handle everything and totally get that. Everyone's different. People want to sell their house as is. I have a house that I own also in Pennington that I would love to sell as is. So if you are looking for a house in Pennington, you want to buy it as is, you can buy my house. I hate it. And I hate it because when you have 7 people or 7 living beings in a 4 bedroom house, oh, you start to. So I know what people are going through in this whole example here because I'm going through it myself too. With that said, I would love to sell my house as is. I know it's not going to happen. But if you are someone who wants to sell your house as is, here's something I want you to do. Do the walkthrough with your realtor, maybe a contractor friend or a recommended contractor friend that can do a walkthrough to give you an idea of some of the items and costs. And then let's sit down and do a negotiation. So I did this with a client recently. Went through his house, brought a contractor, and I was like, here's everything that's going to come up to inspections. I have a keen eye. I was like, you got the fray wiring here, you got this here. Okay, this strap here needs to be fixed. I mean, I went through it with a fine-tooth comb. I've been on thousands of home inspections. Unless I never paid attention to a home inspection, I think I should know what I'm looking for after going through 1,000 of them. Mind you, I'm not a licensed home inspector, but I understand what they're looking at. Okay. So we go through and I say to him, I go, all right, here's what the cost is in the repairs. He says, okay. He says, you know what, Steph? He goes, I don't want to make the investment. He goes, I understand a buyer's going to come back. You went through your whole speech. He's like, but here's the deal. I will authorize in inspection negotiations no more than a $5,000 credit. That is my max. So I'm going to hire you and I need you to make sure when we get to that inspection period, that's it. Okay. So, you know what was so unique about that situation and why I want to bring this up as an example? Because he was the only person at a meeting with over 3,000 people. Actually, in my career, I've met with about 7,000 people. So 7,000 people who are looking to sell their home or wanted a valuation or an equity report on their home. He was the first one that we sat down together and said, this is my cap for inspection negotiations. And I loved it. And I'm like, thank you for doing that because I've spent over a decade trying to get people to have that conversation with me on inspection negotiations. But a lot of people don't want to plan for the unknown, and I respect that as well. So hopefully this can help you with going through inspections. Big thing on unknown costs that come up when selling your home. All right, so lastly, I want to go over with you bridge loans. All right, so what is a bridge loan? So let's say that you want to sell your home, you're a first-time home buyer, you bought this 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch. And you're like, yeah, I need more space. So I need to buy this 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. And guess what happens? You're looking, you're getting beat down because they don't want to accept your offer because they don't want to deal with a home sale contingency. Because what sellers want to see if you were a buyer, they want to see a guaranteed offer. Everybody wants guarantees. So when you have a contingency, they're like, that makes that feeling of a guaranteed way much less. All right, so totally understand that. So there are these programs called bridge loans. Oh, they're phenomenal. Now, there's a couple things that you need to know with a bridge loan is there are costs. There's cost to everything in this world. And here's something that you should know. If you want to do a bridge loan, before you do anything in real estate, before you list your home, before you do any of that, you have to meet with a realtor, understand your walkaway costs, and then you're talking to a lender on the bridge costs. There's a couple programs. HomeLight does a program. Knock does a program. There are certain lenders that offer in-house bridge programs that the fees vary. What I'm seeing now. So I had 2 clients look into doing a bridge program, and the number for them, their home value was about 500,000. It looked like that their costs are about $12,000 to do the bridge. They had a $12,000 extra closing cost for the bridge. One client, it didn't work for, but the other client, that fee, at the end between everything, it didn't really matter. It didn't hurt them or take away. It was able to balance out. So they pay the $12,000 fee once everything's all paid and settled. Again, it wasn't that big of a financial downturn, actually made things a little bit better. And you want to know why? Okay. In their example, so if they, like, let's go over this. All right. So they are looking at a house. We'll call it 123 Main Street. And I'm going through these negotiations with the realtor. And on 123 Main Street, the agent says to me, we don't want to deal with a house sale contingency. If you want that house sale contingency and you need it, you have to make it worth the seller's while. What does that mean? It means the seller's going to want you to pay more money for it. So we'll call it that house they're buying was 500,000. And I said to her, all right. So I go, let's run some scenarios by because you don't have any other offers, but you're probably going to get other offers, blah, blah. If my buyer gave you 535 to buy this home with that contingency, and of course, other nuances, would that be enough money for your seller to consider accepting our offer? Talk to the client. She says, if that's something you want to do, that's something they'll entertain, write it up. I said, all right. I go, I have that answer. Let me do my other thing with my lender. Let's talk about this bridge loan. All right. So I called the lender, called the client. We're on a three-way. I said, we're doing the bridge. Let's run the numbers. Cost came to 12,000. Called the agent back the next day and I said, all right, I think we have a way that we'll need a house sale contingency. Do you have any offers? She says, I don't, but I have some showings. Again, nothing's guaranteed. All right, let's go back to drawing board. So I said to my client, I go, listen, let's offer them 510. All right. So let's do the math here. So the seller, in order for their convenience fee, right? Because it's inconvenient for them to have to accept something with a house sale contingency, not having guarantee. And people are willing to wait for money, right? We're all willing to wait. Hey, if you wanted to buy my home for $800,000, but you didn't have your money until next year, guess what? I'm waiting for that money. All right, so let's do the math. So 535 minus 510. That's $25,000. Okay. So now let's do 25 minus 12, $13,000. So by doing the bridge program in that scenario, saved this buyer $13,000. Okay. So sometimes this is how the numbers work out. That's why you need to assess your situation, assess what's out there in the market, really dive into these costs. You can understand what plan is going to work best for you. All right. So 1031 exchanges, I told you I would touch on this a little bit. It is a strategy to defer capital gains by reinvesting into a similar property. You must identify new property within 45 days, complete that purchase in 180 days. You have to work with an attorney or qualified 1031 exchange company. Realtors cannot do it for you. Realtors can help you on negotiating offers, get you the numbers that you'll need. But here is a mistake that so many realtors, and I have made this mistake too, is this. All right, so they're selling a property. We'll call it ABC First Street. So they're selling ABC First Street, and they're going to do a 1031 exchange. And I show them this house. I'm like, this is your next investment. It's this amazing multifamily. And you want to know something funny? Is just so you know, under 1031 exchanges, it does not mean that you can just purchase whatever you want. There's a like for like standard. So if you are selling an investment property and you fall within this 1031 exchange before you do anything, you have to talk to a 1031 exchange company and an attorney to identify what can you purchase, because we can't do those calcs for you. We need to know these numbers to help you for your next buy, because not everything's going to apply. Okay, so our little tip for 1031 exchanges. Like I said, I wanted to make it probably longer than I anticipated, but short, sweet, to the point. I find this information so important because, listen, I'm just like you guys. I have a little baby. He's 4 months, going on 5 months. And for any of you who have babies or had babies, you know that you do not sleep. Like, it is, the exhaustion is a whole new level. And I peruse on the internet late at night. So much fun that I did a psychic reading at 3 a.m. because I just had to stay awake. And it's like, okay, feeding, burping. Then, unfortunately, my son had every single virus that is out there. So we have been hit hard with these sicknesses this year. So I'm just bored. I'm like exhausted. I need something to keep my mind. And I peruse social media too, like everyone else. And I see content that other realtors share because, I always love to support um, other realtors, and I love to see other information because I always love to learn. And I just found, I'm like, you know what? I'm not even putting out information about what we talked about here, and I'm not seeing it online anywhere else. And then I go through these processes with communication with people who are thinking about selling in the near future. And they're in shock with costs. So I thought if you are someone who is looking to plan for any real estate related move, whether it is today, tomorrow, next month, 6 months, a year, 10 years from now, this is information that you need to utilize for that planning session and strategy. So I'm going to tell you everyone's situation, as I mentioned, is entirely different. So give me a call, 609-954-5206, or you can text me, or if you're email savvy, you can email me. I am glued to my phone, unfortunately. If I do not respond to you, I am either on another line or with a client. Um, so please, I try to work on responding as quickly as possible. But I'm not ignoring you by any means. I have some additional resources on my website for some content videos that I put up to talk more about the fluff of selling a house and what the process actually looks like. So if you want to dive a little bit more deeper in there, you can use our website as a resource. You can also utilize this for looking up your home valuation, looking other houses that are for sale. You can see our featured listings, so please take a look at them because if you know anyone who might be looking to buy, please check out our listings. But if you are someone who's more tech savvy, you're like me, I love things that are convenient. If you ask me to like go online to this website to fill out this form to do this, I'll put on my task list. And then it's going to be buried in all the other tasks that I have. And I'm one who never follows up on my personal stuff. I have to focus on everyone else's stuff. So all my personal stuff gets booted to the end. So if I could text something really quickly and get a response, that's for me. So if you're someone like that, you can text that, which I went over before, HVN to 59559. But, because I was a little bit longer here than I anticipated, um, I would love for you guys to just send me your personal questions here. Um, so I can really get an answer for everyone. I appreciate your time watching this and attending. I really hope that some of this information will help you. If it's not for you, but it's for someone you know, share this out to them. I would really like to get this content out to people who you may know that need it. And if I could help one of your family, friends, or coworkers just by, preparing this information, I'll be so grateful. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and I hope you guys have a great year. Welcome to 2025. Thanks, guys.